So we are talking about buyer consultation, how to be a really good advisor to clients. And so I think that's a really important job that sometimes isn't always focused on. We're talking, numbers versus, the actual how to be the best for that one client, one client at a time.
Awesome. Awesome. Megan jumping in as a trusted advisor to Drew with the answer, bailing him out, Jeopardy style. Awesome. Drew, take it away. Introduce Megan for us.
All right, everybody. I'm super excited today. I absolutely love being an advisor. I love the title Beyond Transactions. I think that we need more of that. And I'm super excited to introduce Megan Fass today to crush it and teach us a little bit about being a trusted advisor.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Happy to be here. Just a little bit about me. I am passionate about helping, people get to their next chapter, best chapter. I've actually done this since I was a kid, including buyers, sellers, agents, and just people in general. Our team does about 70, 80 million a year, average price point about $1 million, helping people from 300 million or 300,000 up to 5 million. And I have a really great team that I am very passionate that they are really good people that help our buyers and sellers. So with the experience of over 20 years, I've learned a lot through negotiations, winning contracts, pre-market opportunities, and just better experiences. So I'm very happy to share. And I am a mom of two, my favorite thing to be. They're teenagers, the weird years. My team gets to hear all of it all the time. We're all people, and so we all have our crazy lives as well. So navigating through the teen years, but love traveling. We built a pickleball court, hazy IPAs, and my happy place is our lake house at Lake Anna. So that's a little bit about me.
That's cool.
Thanks. Thank you. And if anybody has anything, it's a lot of content I have here. I hope to get through it within the hour. Questions at the end are great, but if you have something that while I'm on a page, just speak up and I'll happy to answer it quickly. But I have a lot of content. So mastering the buyer consultations, this is where you have the opportunity to decode the buyer's goals. It's all about them and making their dreams a reality and peeling back that onion, meaning, we're gonna have a lot of questions that we want to ask them. We want to focus on solving their problems and having solutions that sometimes they don't even know that they have those questions, and just being very strategic, and mastering the hunt to find those properties for buyers. So it's not just waiting for the MLS. It's not just sitting back. It's a real job. So before the appointment, whether it's a hot lead that the person, or whether it's somebody that you've never met, every minute counts. So speed to lead, we actually have an email that's asked them all these questions. We actually have a form that they can fill out, very specific about their ideal property, getting them engaged out of the gates. And when you book the appointment, you want to send a calendar invite and a HighNote, where we use HighNote, that gives a lot of information about our team. So just things that you're doing even before you meet them, showing that you're professional and getting them engaged right out of the gate. So when you are at that first appointment, assuming that you don't know this person, you've got to earn their trust, and their loyalty, because not only are they your potential client, but everybody they know could become your potential clients too. So you got to listen, learn, and care. Asking again lots of questions. Why are they moving? Anything in terms of their job, their school, a lease ending, a baby coming. Do they need to sell? And financially, do they have to sell first? This is a conversation we have with a lot of people, the chicken or the egg. Do you need to sell or you need to buy first? And so that's a very big onion that you have to peel back to figure out the best strategy. And just be prepared as they give you information, pivot your questions and change. This will earn their trust when you're very interested about them and making sure you can solve those problems. And when you're decoding those goals, you do want to ask what their needs are in terms of, ideal location, bedrooms, all of the things, is a busy road okay versus a cul-de-sac, getting into the nitty gritty like that. Sometimes we actually have them do a homework assignment, especially when there's a husband, wife, their must-haves, that we have them rank things so they get some clarity of what might be more or less important for themselves as well as their partner. And it's really interesting what can come out in that homework assignment. And then we have them rank properties as they go through, and you tell them at the front, like, when we go see, we want you to rank them 1 through 7. 7's a unicorn. Don't expect to see 7s. But it's a 5 or 6, we're going to start talking about, the possibility of writing on it. And then, when you are talking about, do they need to sell first? If the answer is yes, can we do a bridge loan? Can we recast the loan later? Show of hands. Who knows what a recast is? Well, I know Gailey does because she's on my team. Yep, okay, good. Jake Caputo, awesome. So if you don't know
What's
what
a recast?
okay, good. Okay, a recasting, thank you. So recast is actually something that not even a lot of realtors know about, but a lot of people want to sell their home because they want the equity out of it and they want to put it down so they have a lower mortgage. But what they don't realize is that they can actually go buy a house if they qualify. And when they then sell their house later, they can recast their loan that they have and they take that equity. Say it's, 500,000, it was a $1.5 million house. They take that 500,000 that they sold and they recast their loan, reducing the principal, and then it recast the monthly payment. So nothing changes. It's the same loan, same interest rate, same time left. So let's say it's 6 months later, it's the same loan. So it's not a refinance, and a lot of lenders won't tell you about this because it's only like $300 to do it. A refinance, they make a lot of money. So therefore, you're going to solve their problems like, oh, so you can qualify, but you just really want that money out. Oh, I have your solution. It's called a recast. And consumers definitely don't know about it, and agents should know about it. So hopefully that's a good education for those who didn't know that. Lenders is important, the reputation they have, will they work weekends, help you, and then qualifications, what's their max price? Sure, nobody wants to get there, but if that dream house comes up, you just need to get that information out of them that you don't miss out on that property. And then just talking to them about waiving some of the contingencies, whether that's the appraisal, and we'll go over that a little bit more. So in your strategic search, of course, there's the MLS. You need to set them up on immediate alerts, and you need to tell them, I need you to help me help you. So you need to be on this every day. And so you need to tell me as soon as you see a property so we can schedule it. Because we've had people in within 30 minutes of it listing, our team's working on the contract, pre-inspection. We have a contract to them within like 2 hours and shut it down before other people. So speed to lead and speed to property. And then all the other things that they can wherever they want their search, sometimes we already have them set up. But then the off-market opportunities are huge. We obviously have our EXP office exclusives, hunting, expired withdrawals, even rentals. People don't always think about going back to what rented a year or two ago that their lease is probably coming up, and contacting those homeowners or the listing agents and seeing would they consider selling. Agent relationships, I have been, building that where people will share what they have coming soon, and I've been able to get our buyers in. So working relationships is important. And then if your buyer has a target, call those listing agents. Every buyer agent should be doing this when they have a buyer, calling those listing agents that do the majority. We've even sent letters, to specific firms. Top Agent Network is a thing that we have here. Is the top 10%. So we've been able to know about properties, get them in, and get them under contract before it even hit the market. And then even reaching out to your past clients and sphere, and saying, hey, who do you know in the neighborhood that might be selling? That's actually worked for us too. And then obviously calling homeowners directly, and seeing if they or anybody in their neighborhood would consider selling soon. Any questions so far?
Hey, Megan, I'm sorry. You're on a roll and I don't want to slow you down. This is awesome. I love decode goals. I love that because sometimes buyers don't even know their own goals.
Oh,
Right?
totally.
So
Yeah. The more questions, they don't know what they don't know.
right. I love that. And second, what's HighNote before we get
So
too
that's
far?
a platform. It's you can create all kinds of like landing page or pages that gives you information. So we have one for buyers, for sellers, pre-listing, after the listing appointment, and it basically is a highlight of what we went over. So it's like information to educate them.
Like
So we send one
expectations?
before our presentation, so we're not coming in blind that they know nothing.
Awesome. All right.
It's
So
we want them to read about us, read about the process, read about things, so they're getting better educated. So we look at an educated consumer.
I love that. I don't want to slow you down.
I have one
Thanks.
quick question. What's the market like in Nova? Are you at 6 months of inventory? Are you at 1 month of inventory?
I'll tell you, it's very
Offers,
different.
like,
Yeah, so
like,
it is extremely different in little pockets because we are a huge area, and depending upon price point and location, you can have like we had a client that was like hot for buying, and it was like multiple contracts, had to pay 100,000 over. And then, a couple weeks later, we go to sell their house and it's overpopulated with inventory. So it really varies here.
Mm.
So, but I'll tell you, it's better than a lot of other metropolitan areas around the country. So, we're still seeing multiple contracts in a lot of areas. So it's
Okay.
still hot, in comparison, not as hot it was as a year or two ago.
Sure. Thank you.
Sure. So pre-showing, I recommend, especially when you're showing, like, for the first time, or, you're going to see the most amount of properties. Obviously, when you meet a client, you got to see everything that's out there. If they don't like it, then you're waiting on new inventory. Show them the worst property to the best property when you first go out, because managing expectations is part of our job. And if you go and show them the best property, their expectations are up here, and then they're just going to be disappointed. But if you show them the crappy house first, it only gets better from there. So definitely do that. And if it's a really hot listing that just listed today, call that agent, see if they have anything they're working on. So that helps like that, managing your buyer's expectations and how quickly you might need to move. When you're meeting them for the first time, text them or call them. Hey, I'm stopping for coffee. What can I get you? Not, do you want coffee? Because they'll say no. Just, hey, what can I get you? I'm stopping. And then so you're bringing something to them the first meeting, and it's just a nice, like, connection. Print out the gallery of all your showing. So first time clients, it's usually, more than one property. You've got several that you're going to see what's on the market, and like become prepared. If it's a really hot property, have a contract drafted. Time makes deals, time kills deals. So oh my gosh, once probably 15 years ago, I lost a property by 10 minutes. They had a 9 a.m. deadline. I was in communication with the agent, and my buyers were finalizing their price. I'm like, you guys need to sign this. It was like 8:30. I'm like texting her. I'm like, we'll have it to you by 9. She's like, okay. Well, they didn't sign it till like 9:07. I get it to her at 9:10. She responds immediately and says, oh, I'm sorry. We've already accepted a contract. Deadline was at 9. I was like, are you kidding me? Like 10 minutes, like at that, they probably already selected a contract that they liked, but it's a lesson learned. Like, sometimes listing agents have their own rules that you need to play by. Well, and when you're at the showing, you really need to listen to them, what is important to them, what's not important to them, and point out things that might not be as obvious. Like, hey, do you guys notice that you can hear the road from here? Hey, do you realize the windows are older? Hey, do you realize the slope of the land? We got to make sure that we're not getting water in here, because that's building trust, and you don't want them buying a lemon, and you don't want them having to go through an inspection and go through all the stuff and realize, oh snap, this is not the house for me. And then when you find that like golden one, they're going to trust you more, that like, oh, this is the one and it's underpriced. Like, we need to like move fast, and you might need to go higher. So you're building that trust along the way. Inspection issues, you're looking for that all the time. Usually happens in basements, looking for water, looking for cracks in the house. And if they like it, definitely take a video. So you and they don't have to go back a second, a third, and a fourth time, and they can show their friends and family. We upload it to YouTube and then send a private link and send it to them. And ideally, you're having both parties, if it's a husband, wife, or two partners, showing it together. And then always have your next appointment booked, no matter what it is. Okay, so let's, none of these were right for you. Let's do a follow-up, send an email and summarize next steps. And again, we have another HighNote that recaps information for them. All right, so you want them to feel like you're the only client. Like I said, sharing the video. If they like the property, you're going to send them comps. It's crazy to me that sometimes realtors just say, oh yeah, here's that's a good price. Well, how do they know? Like, you need to send them comps, and then just help them solve their issues in terms of timing. You're going to have them rank their 3 homes through time. So again, that 1 through 7, 7's a unicorn. Don't expect that. And if you do, like, there's probably going to be a lot of other people that like it as well. And then just offer discussions if it's a 5 or 6. So I just want to share a couple stories. This always helps to like just think about, what we've been able to do. So we had a client, $2 million buyer and a seller, and it just, as you're seeing properties, that sometimes buyers don't always know what they like. It changes in time, and their qualifications changed. So we actually learned, they liked this property, and then they didn't include their 401k that they could borrow against. So that actually helped them get into a home, because they borrowed against it short term to be able to qualify. So that was just thinking, like, peeling back that onion to figure out how you're going to solve their problems, because they like a property, but they don't quite qualify. And then they forgot this 401k that they could use. We had a client, Liz and Mike. There was a house that was coming soon that we knew of our realtor friend's relationship. And they're like, oh my God, we know we love this home. We love the street. They have a pool. Like, we want this house. And so they wouldn't let us in. So I said, well, you guys, you can write sight unseen. The cost of admission is a contract and an inspection contingency to protect you. So we did that. And then the agent's like, oh my God, Megan, like, we are not prepared for this. Well, okay, fine, we'll let you in. So they let us in that day. They accept our offer. She goes and posts it on the MLS. They get a contract for 50,000 more, like an hour. Like another agent wrote sight unseen as well. So this is like speed to lead and relationships. And so they were so happy to get into that house, and it would have been bid up. Another client, where you start and where you end up at can change. Chris and Bridget started at 1.5. They ended up in a 2 million. There was a property that they saw they really liked. There was a new deadline on Monday. And I told them, don't always believe that. Listing agents change, things change, like people. And so I was like, we can write right now. And well, what happened was that somebody else did that. And then it changed from a Monday deadline to a Saturday at 5 p.m. And they call me at like 11. And these guys just weren't prepared. And they're just slow movers, so they're just like, we can't move that fast. I'm like, okay, but as long as we gave them the opportunity and they knew, and I had already advised them to start writing if you like it. One of the things, if somebody sets a deadline, we've done is offering a bonus. If you sign by, we'll give you X amount more than our contract price, versus a deadline that doesn't always feel as good. And we'll talk more about that. But the house they ended up getting was also a sight unseen. There's all the pictures. They loved it. And it was a contract and an inspection to get them in the door. They came in, they absolutely loved it, didn't have to compete. So it's not something that a lot of buyers are comfortable doing, but it's an option that you can always, but you have to say it with confidence and let them know that you're protecting them. And then, one of our teammates, Monica, had a buyers in a condo building, and assessing, like, the price was way off, and the listing agent just wasn't buying it. And so going back to the builder of what they had priced all the properties originally, to show them, like, here's what the builder originally priced it at, and you're like way out of line. So that helped educate that listing agent and got the buyers a much better price than expected. Okay. So more about when they identify a property they like. You got to call the listing agent for critical information. Like, I can't stress this enough. It's crazy to me when I get contracts on a listing of mine that they never called me. It just shows up blindly. Like, what? Like, you are not doing your job as a buyer agent and protecting your buyers. I once had a property, it was 1.2. I had a contract in hand for 1.21, 10,000 over. I blindly got a contract in my email for 135, 150,000 over. I'm like, okay. So, like, I felt bad for that buyer. Anyhow, so you have to move fast. Time makes deals, time kills deals. Find out when they will review offers, and don't always believe them. They might say that Monday deadline, but then they accept something on Saturday. And then if they have contracts, try to get critical information. Is it full price? How strong is it? What terms might be missing? To help you educate your buyers. Any insight on your pricing and the seller's expectations. Sometimes listing agents will say, oh yeah, like, I know we priced high, like, oh, thanks for that. Or like, oh yeah, we're expecting it to go, 50,000 over. They're nuggets of information to help you best advise your buyer. What terms are most important to the seller? If my buyer decides to write, how quickly can they respond? Get them to tell you when they're going to respond. Do you have an offer deadline? Remember, it can change. And then discuss options with the buyers. If you want to submit before the deadline, you might want to offer that signing bonus to help incent them to not wait for that. But if they do want to wait, you might want to talk about the strategy of being the last one in the 11th hour, just to see, are you up against one other contract, or are you up against 10? Because your buyer might choose differently what they offer. So again, it's like we are investigators for information, hunting down critical information so we can better advise them. And then, when, researching the property, look for intel. When did it last sell? Was it a year ago? Was it 10 years ago? When was it first listed? Did they have price drops? What improvements were made? If they bought it 3 years ago, did they put a bunch in, or it's exactly the same? The tax value. People love to look at this. It's one little piece of the pie, But in comparison to what else is selling, is it like, is 120% of tax assessment, the range that most are selling? Is it 90%? So you gotta like just look at all the pieces of the pie of information. Okay, and then researching the comps. How many actors under contract comps? The supply demand. Are there 10 properties that the buyers have choices, or are you the only one? Right. So that's helpful for the buyers to understand. Like, yeah, you can go offer on something else. So let's negotiate more because the seller's in a less fortunate position. So that's important. Dollar per square foot, the assessment ratio, land comparisons. You can have the same house on a busy street versus a cul-de-sac, and that might be a 10% difference, right? So you got, is it a top floor versus a bottom floor? You've got a question, Justin?
I do. Yeah. You mentioned documentation. It says right here, email the buyers these comps, documentation. Yeah.
Yeah,
That
because
jumps out at me.
I want, I'll tell you, I had somebody on my team for 5 days, and she was working a 1.5 buyer, and she was only with me for a week after I realized all the errors on the contract, and she advised him to pay full price. I'm like, what does the comp say? Like, what did you send them? And she's like, oh, I didn't, I just think it's a fair price. I'm like, well, where did you come up with that? And so it's like, no, we need to send them information, give them our advice. Because I mean, like, think about, like, fast forward, all of a sudden the market tanks last year, and you're like, hey, I completely overpaid in last year's market, and there could be a lawsuit, and I don't want any lawsuits ever. So I want to document everything, and I want to advise, and I want to sleep really well at night knowing that I did my best for them. And not sending comps is a liability, and it's just wrong, in my opinion. Like, that's what we should be giving them advice and showing them where we are coming up with it, not just pulling it out of the air like, yeah, that sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
So, the sold comps are, usually find, 2 to 5 and do that assessment. Like, I think this is priced based upon the comps. Like, I think it's priced fairly. I think it's overpriced. I think it's underpriced. And here's the documentation behind it. So the other thing, a lot of agents don't know this. This is also critical, and hopefully this is a good nugget for all of you guys, is looking at this listing agent's sales history. There's no handbook for us realtors. We all do, right, Rob? We all do it differently. So it's really insightful to go and look at their sales history. I've seen people's trends, their averages be 88%. I've seen 107%. So when you see an agent that's averaging 107% of their list price, it's really easy to help guide that buyer, saying, listen, look at the sales history of this listing agent. They always underprice. So don't be surprised because that this one's underpriced too. Or the one that's 88%, this realtor overpromises. They have, multiple price drops. So like giving that information to your buyer to show, like, here's what they tend to do is very helpful. So then they believe you more too. And are they very seasoned, or are they a new agent? Sorry, but go back up to the relationships. Building good relationships is key. We've helped buyers get into properties because we know the agent and they help us, and vice versa. We've helped people that we know are going to make it smooth, they're professional, and we help each other. So there's a favor bank that is in this industry big time. And who, if you don't know them, who do you know that can put a good word in for you? Right? So you might be having a buyer, you're like, hey, Rob, like, I know you know this agent, you're like best friends. Would you just tell them, like, put a good word in for me? So it's like this relationship that really helps your clients. And then when you're looking at the history of that listing agent, are they a newbie, right? Are they very seasoned? So that's going to also help you understand what they might be advising their seller. And then that, the sales trends, do they do price drops every 2 months? So just, again, that psychology is very helpful. Any questions here? Okay, I still have a lot more content. So assessing the buyer's desire and educate them. So this is another thing. You might have a buyer that says, oh, I like this property, and if I get it, great. If not, no, I'm not going to be devastated. Versus, oh my God, this is the unicorn. I love it. There's 10 contracts. How do I win? You're going to offer differently on those 2 properties, right? So this is where asking the right questions and doing your job can help them get it or not. So, you must have it. You got to move fast. Have the team drafting a contract behind the scenes when you're out, because based upon they've seen the market, they understand, they know this is a potential. Consider pre-inspection. Call the inspector. Can you get out there today? Do a walk and talk so you can see the high level stuff, so you can waive the inspection. With the escalation, there's pros and cons to it. The pro is you can win against another contract for an incremental amount, so it doesn't always have to go to their max price. But it also only looks at price. So if you have a bunch of contingencies, that's a pro for you. On the flip side, the con is it shows your cards. So sometimes sellers will say, "Oh, well, I see they're willing to pay up to 1.2," and sometimes they'll counter back at that and try to push to your max. So you have to educate your buyer, like, "Hey, this is the downside. It does show your cards, so they do see what you're willing to pay." And it can also be triggered against a crappy contract with contingencies. So you have to let your buyer know that, like, so you have to, like, kind of play out, like, if you have a bunch of contingencies, you might need a $10,000 increment, right? But if you're like cash, you only need like $1,000 increment, right? Or five. So it depends upon your whole package. Some agents, I had an agent once we offered on, and she didn't realize that you could use an escalation to an escalation. So she, like, triggered her escalation on somebody else's contract, but, like, in talking to her, I was like, oh my gosh, she has no idea what she's doing. So if you don't understand escalations, you need to talk to somebody who does, whether you're on the listing side or buy side. And again, like, you just have to decide if you're okay losing it, because sometimes we have buyers like, "Listen, this is my best. I understand I might not get it." You're like, "Okay, as long as you are making a decision, I'm not going to be blamed," right? I've educated you. You decide. The lender. So hopefully they're working with a lender that you know and trust, because that can make or break the experience. It can also help you win or not, because if there's like a weird lender, and you've two close contracts, that could be the deciding factor. And also make sure to get an updated lender with the offer price. So if you're offering, $1 million on a property and your letter says 1.5, that could encourage the seller to be like, "Oh, they can afford more. Let's just counter more," right? So just one little piece of information. And then with their qualifications, how much time do they need to close? And do they need a financing contingency? A lot of times people want to have one, but we all know that is the hardest one to trigger. The lender actually has to say with the letter they don't qualify to trigger that. So we've talked to clients that, like, they have 50% down and they're doing a financing contingency. Like, you guys realize that your qualifications, you can't even trigger it. So why even put it in there and potentially make that the one little thing, that loses. And then discussing PMI options, ARMs, talk to them about the loan that they're using, and with their lender. And again, we talked about the recasting a loan as well, so making sure they know that option too if they're buying and selling. Or maybe they have an inheritance coming up, or they're getting a divorce settlement money, like whatever it is that they might not realize that they can recast the loan later. Coming up with a strategy to give options. So when are you submitting? This is critical information that you're getting from the listing agents, and deciding with your buyers. Vegas odds. So if you offer this price with these terms, I think there's 80% chance they're going to accept it. If you offer this terms with this price and these terms, 50-50. And then here's one that's like, you can try, but just be prepared. There's a 20% chance you're just gonna be rejected and not even, like, responded to. So when you're putting that back on the buyers, they get to choose. So then when they don't get a response, they're like, "Well, wait, they didn't even counter?" You're like, "Remember we talked about this? Like, we had options of what you wanted to offer. You chose down here, and now we're gonna have to resubmit, and you're basically negotiating against yourself right now." So sometimes it takes buyers some time to realize that what they need to do to win or get a property. The price that you're submitting. So there's a lot that goes into look at. If it's been on the market a while, or if it's lower days of the market, you're going to end up offering lower days of the market and no offers. So you're going to offer less, right? So getting this critical information, if the comps don't support the price, lower. If the listing agent sales history shows that they overprice, you're going to offer lower. You're going to probably offer at list price if it's new in the market, the comps and the agent stats line up. You're going to offer somewhere around there. And you're going to probably offer over if the stats show that they are underpriced and the comp showing that it's underpriced too. So again, coming back to that critical data. And then the terms are very important. that can, I've had sellers that will take a lower price because there's no contingencies. Then I've had sellers that will take a higher price. Higher price with higher price with contingencies, or lower price with no contingencies. So you don't know what the seller is actually going to accept. But you do want to talk to us about your buyers. Are we going to do an inspection? Are we going to do a pre-inspection? Here's some other options. You can do an option to void, so it's like a pass fail. You can also say, hey, we want a regular inspection, but we're willing to forego the first 5,000 of any inspection items. So we're not going to nickel and dime you, but it's protecting your buyer, and it's also giving the seller some peace of mind. You can also, are you going to do a void only? You can also add in some language that is in good order. So let's say the HVAC looks like it's dying. You can say, we're going to do an inspection. The only thing we want to make sure is that it's in good order. So you kind of think through of how to protect your buyers, yet also giving the seller some protection that they like. Appraisal contingency. Are you going to have a gap? Like, well, we're willing to waive the first, 20,000 of any appraisal shortage. So that way, again, it's like a, in between, buyers getting some protection, sellers still getting protection. And then financing contingency, you got to check with the lender if you can waive it. And to expire or to extend, our contract has both options. As a listing agent, I always counter back to expire. I don't want a fake deadline. So, and then you also have to educate your buyers, if it's expired, we need to make sure that you have your qualification and getting that commitment letter to make sure that you're protecting them. And then one interesting thing that somebody did on one of my listings, that the buyer paid like $5,000 towards the seller's closing costs, which I was like, that's really an interesting way, rather than, because that helps if you're using escalations. It's not going to trigger an escalation as much, or you can't use that because it's not part of the price, but it's a very clever way to make their contract more attractive and put more money in my seller's pocket. Okay, other terms. Do they need a rent back? Are you going to make it a free rent back, or their PITI, principal, interest, taxes, insurance, the carrying costs? Are you going to reimburse them for seller's utilities? Somebody did that on one of my listings too, which I thought was interesting. The earnest money deposit, it's got to be higher if you're competing. Another trick is making it non-refundable. But you have to, if you're competing, making a non-refundable earnest money deposit is risky for the buyer. But if the buyer's like, I 100% know I want this property, I will be devastated if I don't get it, this is one thing that you can add in there. And then offer deadlines. Sometimes it works and sometimes it backfires, right? You can put a deadline in your contract and it can piss off somebody. Like somebody did that to me on my listing with a 3-hour deadline. I was like, are you kidding me? That is so rude. Like I'm just sitting around doing nothing and my clients have nothing going on either. And so that put a really, I was not interested in working with that agent and then I had another great agent that was very patient. So ask the listing agent, is it okay if we put a deadline in? And I've had some that will say, yeah, actually that would actually help, because I think I need to get my sellers to understand and respond. And other times they'll say, like, please don't, that is so, I hate it. I'm like, okay, I'm glad that I asked. And then that secret tip of a signing bonus. So I literally had a seller stop on the side of the road to meet our $5,000 signing bonus, to accept our contract and ratify first day in the market. So it's much better received to have a bonus than a deadline. And so actually somebody just did that on one of our listings, and I was like, oh, I have not seen anybody else do this other than our team. So that's another trick we have up our sleeve that we're sharing with you right now. Make it easy for the listing agents. There's nothing more annoying than getting 8 different, right, Kaylee? Getting 8 different documents, and it's all they've got errors all through it. You're like, oh my God, this is gonna be a nightmare. So one PDF, outline the terms in the email that they can just forward on to their seller. Follow the rules and instructions. Like we have in our break docs instructions. Our preferred closing date, our preferred closing company, here's the conveyances, follow along. We're helping you. And then make it so they can just ratify versus countering. So if you have an error in your contract, that seller actually has to correct it and send it back. And that is, you just added time for somebody else to come in and take it from you that offered more. So shame on you if you have errors. And it's just some example language that we've used. Non-refundable 50K earnest money deposit to be held by the seller. Also, I had people telling me we can't do this, subject to the seller not defaulting or voiding the contract. The remainder of the other 50,000, because it was 100,000, will be held by the closing company. So this is a winning term that they loved it. They got 50 grand. They knew it was in their bank already. And then the parties agree that the contract, the heating, cooling, plumbing, electrical, and appliances shall be in good working order. So you could put that in if you are waiving your inspection, so you have protected your buyer some. That was old language we had about 15 years ago in our contract that they took out. And then if the contract is accepted and ratified by this date and time, signing bonus of, this is the guy that pulled off the road for his 5,000 to get to 1,300,005. So that was a nice win. Or you can put, contract will expire tomorrow by X date and time if no response from the seller. So just some key language there. We had some other things. Here's one that we use: seller signing bonus of 10,000. Price shall be 705. Free rent back. And this is if they accept and ratify then these terms. So this is some agents are like, wait a minute, well, how do I get this? Well, I'm forcing you to counter to put these terms in. We're willing to accept it, but I'm forcing you to counter. So the ball's back in our court. Okay. Because it's, if I'm the listing agent, I might say, my sellers like this, but you have to actually make the changes. You're right. You got to be very mindful of who holds the power, who holds the contract. Because at any point it can be three different things. It's going to be ratified, it's going to be countered, or it's just going to be ignored and do nothing. So you just got to always educate your client, whichever side you're on. These are the three options when you counter. Or it can also be withdrawn if it hasn't been ratified. And then some other just things, rent back for 45 days free of charge, reimbursing them for utility costs, payment of settlement costs up to 7,000. So just some things, when you're competing. And another interesting one: seller contributes to termite remediation will be lesser of 50% of the cost of 500. That was a one-time weird one. Oopsies. Okay, so that is actually what time are we? 9:09. Okay, so I have a lot. I actually even have the seller side of it. So I'm going to stop here and pause and ask for questions about the buy side.
Well, let me make some comments. Is that okay, Megan?
Uh-huh.
Okay, great. So for anybody listening right now, you can see that she is playing chess with the contract, and most agents are playing checkers with the contract. They just don't understand. And using human psychology in all of it, right? So have you ever tracked, Megan, what your written offer acceptance ratio is by any chance? Hey, we write as a team this amount of contracts, and this is how many, this is how quickly they get accepted.
No, but that's interesting. I feel really good about, because sometimes, like I said, sometimes buyers will write knowing that they're probably going to lose. And I'm okay with that, because it's one step of getting them educated. So the next time they have to write, they're better informed and they've gone through the process and we can move faster. So, but I'm very confident that our consultation, we feel good about the outcome, whether they win or lose.
Yeah, my thoughts are, you're probably, even during the crazy, your acceptance rate was more than likely higher.
Totally. Oh, 100%. Yeah, I'm very confident about that.
Yeah, you had the ability to, one, really develop the relationship with the other side. You've been in the business, you understand, who you're dealing with on the listing side when you're submitting on the buyer side. Yeah. And then two, tactically knowing what levers to pull depending on the situation. And that, by the way, guys, comes with some time and some experience, right? These are, Megan probably came with some learning lessons along the way of things that you're like, damn, if we had just done this, this would have worked, right? I would imagine we called it as an example, the exploding offer. Hey, if you accept this contract today, you'll get a $5,000 bonus, but you've got to accept it today, or you got to accept it by this time. That was a strategy that helped us secure a lot of listings during the crazy, right? And so it's
Mhm.
like, how do you tactically make that happen every single time? So Megan, I think this is awesome because it's kind of refreshing and reframing for me, because I've been out of that game for a long time. I'm like, like that's what I did. I did that. Like that's so it's cool. Thank you. Right.
Yeah.
Who's got some questions specific questions for Megan on any of this?
I've got a specific
Fast class.
question.
Yeah.
This is fantastic. From observation from the outside, and I wonder if this might be, I suspect if I look at the median levels of education, job, etc., you've got a more sophisticated market
Yes.
than I do in East Tennessee.
Mm.
Maybe a more sophisticated, agent pool. Because I'm looking at some of this and I was going, even in the COVID years, this level of sophistication didn't necessarily, I wasn't seeing this level of, right, when it was go, 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 go. The challenge that I might face is I'm in a market that's starting to decline. How do I write an offer in such a way that maybe I'm doing the job of the seller, right? I'm the one bearing the bad news of like, hey guys, you're overpriced. I
Yeah.
am,
So, I mean, I've got a lot. I was in that 2008 market. I came into the business in
yeah,
2004.
100. Does that kind of track what I mean of like, because on the other side, I'm like, please put it into if you're going to lowball me, like, I can't advocate for your lowball offer, but like,
Yeah, I've got a lot of tricks up
explain
my
why
sleeve
you're
there too.
lowball. Like, walk
Oh
me
yeah.
through this in
So,
writing.
I mean,
How do I
if
do
you're talking
that?
about the listing side, which is a whole nother beast, it's a whole different business. Like your whole consultation is completely different on the
But
listing side.
on the buyer side, if I'm writing an offer,
Okay.
and Rob took the listing, he wants to sign in the yard. He's like, yeah, they'll come down eventually. How do I write an offer, where hey, I don't want to wait till he does that 50K price reduction. I want to come in and say,
Yeah.
hey,
So
I know you're at 550, but it's really 485, and this is why. What
yeah.
what can I do to do that effectively?
Well, obviously there's going to be comps, right? So you should be providing like if you think that the price should be 485, then there's got to be three comps that prove that. Now, the
Gotcha.
listing agent, if they're good, might say, well, here's the other three that show it should be 525, right? So
Sure.
it's a matter of different opinions, but you're fighting for the ones that prove the lower price. And you're going to say, hey, and by the way, there's 5 properties in your neighborhood, and we're starting with yours, and this is not acceptable to you. We're going to go offer on one of the other ones.
Okay. So
So like,
I'm going to provide data. I'm providing a takeaway, right? Some sense of urgency. I like this, Drewski, right? Yeah.
the other thing is telling your buyers, hey, in order to beat a seller down on price, it takes time and no other offers. So if you want to try to, fight for a lower price, it's not going to happen overnight. So if they just listed like 2 days ago, it's really going to take more time. If they've been on the market for 60 days, 90 days, and they're feeling the pain of that market, it's going to be faster. They may have already had a
Gotcha.
price drop at that point. But like looking at that listing agents, their sales trends, and if they're like, oh yeah, they always this, you don't want to necessarily call them out on that because we're relationship building. But you're like, hey, I know, you know, you got to say it in a way where I know a lot of times there's price drops rather than, waiting for that. We're giving this to you now, so you don't have to go through that pain. So he's going to be like, oh yeah, I know we're already talking about it. Right. So a lot of the things you have to kind of think through. Is it new on the market? But like I've had buyers that say, I want to offer 50,000 less, and I know I might not get it. And I'm like, that's fine. But just realize, part of the game too is you offer, and you might just, when they counter back at that 525, you don't respond. You're like, okay, buyer, I know you're still interested. I know you're willing to pay up to 490 or 500. Let's make them sweat. Let's wait a few days. And then they're like, oh crap, did I just lose out on my one buyer? But you got to tell the buyer, like, this is going to take time if you really want to beat the seller down on price. And again, like somebody can come in and scoop it out and like they get 500 and then it's theirs. Are you okay with that? So you got to play out the different scenarios and let them know how it might play out. And then they're educated and they're like, oh, okay. And so when you're making them sweat it out for those 3 days and then they all of a sudden get this $500,000 contract, and then you get that call like, oh, we just accepted something. And your buyer's like, oh my God, wait, I was willing to pay 500. You're like, we talked about this. We talked about the options and the risks and rewards,
Yes.
every option. So that's our job, is telling them the risks of doing this way and the reward. or the risk and reward of doing option B.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's,
Probably can go up.
yeah,
Megan, it's developing. I think you would agree because I've heard you say this. What you say to the other side, from like a buyer agent to a listing agent, is so important, right? Because you could say something one way and it's going to piss the listing agent off. So one way to always question the price without questioning the price is just to say, "Hey, Megan, God, this is a beautiful listing that you have. Hey, would you mind sending me the comps, or what comps did you pull to justify the price that you currently have?" Right? Because now
yeah,
I'm going to make them do the
totally.
work,
Yeah.
right?
So start with, how did you come up with your pricing?
Yeah. How'd you come up with the
And
pricing?
then see
Like,
what they say.
yeah.
Okay, well, thank you. That's helpful. Like, I understand your seller is like, not very motivated. It would really help me to educate my buyers where you came up with your pricing. So do you mind sending me the comps that you use? Because the comps I'm showing and so you're also preparing them for the lower offers. You're like mentally like letting them know like, hey, we're not seeing the value. And so like, and then I'll sometimes say like, don't kill the messenger, but like we are offering, you might want to prepare your seller, because based upon the comps and what we're seeing and the supply demand and the interest rate rise and all these things, we're going to be coming in lower. So just to prepare. So then they have that like, okay, thank you. Let me, all offers are encouraged. So yeah, so it's definitely like a kind
Yeah,
way.
I always took the approach of like, I'm helping the other side, right? Like,
Oh
we're
yeah.
trying to help each other in this
And we're
process.
working together here. Yeah.
We're
Ooh.
working together, right? Because many times, a weak agent will be at the mercy of a D client, and they need our ammunition in order to help them lower the
Totally.
price, right? And so the more that I understand who their seller actually is, and how they arrived at the price and what's important to the seller and how can I help you in this process, like they're like, please help me,
Yeah.
help you, right?
And
So
also writing the email when you submitted a contract, assume that they will always forward it to their seller. So you
oh
can write
yeah,
stuff in there that can help that listing agent justify the lower price, right? So those comps, like, here are the 3 comps. Here's why your property should be priced at what we're offering. So helping them to like educate. The other thing I didn't put in here, I don't know why it's not in here, but is those love letters, which I know we're not supposed to do. But I always ask the listing agent, is it okay? Because I think it's more than a contract. It's a transaction, and I'm all about good energy. And I want everybody to play nice in the sandbox. I want everybody to come to the table happy. So it has really, made the experience better for both sides when there is a love letter. So when I get one of my listings, I usually like, I love it. And the sellers love it too. But then I also have to sometimes manage the sellers like, okay, you're not going to accept 20,000. This just happened. We have a contract under contract for 20,000 difference. And they were thinking about the one that was 20,000 less because they loved the letter. And so sometimes you're like, okay, seller, you know, you love me too. You want to put that extra 20K in my pocket, but no, I want it in your pocket. Let's be realistic. These second buyers are also lovely. They just don't have an agent that's educated, and they should be writing a letter too.
I I love this, and if you're on the call, if you might not know this, we upload all of these to the YouTube channel, and I say this because we did one on negotiation. We had Seth Levin from New York City come in here, and I think you'll like this, Megan. I thought of you immediately because it sounded like a Megan tactic. He would call the agent and he'd say, "Hey, give me a call real quick when you're in front of it. You can review the offer," and he'd send it on the phone, and he'd be on the phone with the agent if he could catch him, so that he could hear the terms. Great, great. Yeah, I just want to make sure go over the terms, Joel. And they so he could hear where their tone would change of the terms that they might have an issue with.
Interesting. So the
Different,
listing agent would read it off.
but no, he'd call them up. Now they're like an LOI state, right? Where I'm sending over a letter, we're pre-negotiating on the front end, and then it's going to an attorney to draft the contract. So I think just it's a more collaborative process there potentially, but I'd call you up, Megan. I mean, go listen to it. It's fantastic. And he'd say, hey, he's the number one KW agent in New York City. But he's like, I would call them and I'd listen to Megan just, yep, I got it. He'd have a summary in the email of what it is and just the terms. Ooh, you know, their tone changes at this one turn. They give
Interesting.
away information. I thought it was fascinating. It's
Yeah,
hard to
I've
pull
had a lot
off,
of
but I
buyer
thought that'd be very
agents.
interesting to see if you
Yeah,
could.
I've had buyer agents try to ask me, like, oh, will your seller accept this, this, and that, price terms, and I'm like, put it in writing.
Yeah.
And for us, like, I'm not negotiating and giving away what the seller will or won't do until you put it in writing. So I want them to go through the effort. They're like, oh, we don't want to waste their time. I'm like, it's not that hard to write a contract. It's not that much time. Like, if you can't spend 30 minutes writing up a contract, shame on you. You don't have to, like, sorry, but do your job and send me over a real contract. I'm not negotiating with you verbally.
Mm.
Yep.
I love it.
Yep.
So, and I love the asymmetry, right? But on the buyer side, it sounds like, Megan, I'm going to get all the information. If Rob's willing to, I'll negotiate all these terms before I write. If he's I'm going to pull information out of him.
Oh,
I'll wait
yeah.
for him to accept.
I mean, it's great to do that as a buyer agent, but a listing agent shouldn't be giving that away. You should be forcing them to put it in writing. I mean, so yeah, so I've got a whole listing side of consultation. We can schedule another time to
We're
do
gonna
that one
bring you
next.
back, Megan. We're gonna bring you back on the listing side, Pete.
Okay.
We
Like
will.
this is great
Can
because
you?
there's so many elements. There's so many elements of this of a master class. I'd love to open it up with any questions that anybody has.
Yeah, who's got questions? Because I think let's hear some great questions. I think what I'm hearing, Megan, is there is a difference between being a nice person and being a fiduciary. You can be
Yeah,
both. Like you're obligated to go or what it means to actually advocate for your client.
and there's no handbook for us realtors. It's like classes like this where the agents have to actually step up and seek out consultation like this because you get your real estate license. It does nothing for you. Sorry, but it doesn't. Like you don't know how to consult a client. You've memorized some stuff to pass an exam, but how you consult a buyer and seller and like know all the possibilities, all those pros and cons, and how you like understand who that person is and what their risk tolerance is, that comes with experience and time. And so you need to like get in with people that understand that you can like utilize, get on these calls that like we are busy people that we are spending time educating agents. And I think sometimes people get into this business thinking it's easy, and it's a really big job that we have helping people shift from one chapter to the next. It's the biggest stressor moving. Like I just moved 2 years ago and I wasn't even planning on moving. I didn't have to move. Just I manifested this house. And so I'm like, okay, I guess I'm buying this house that I manifested. And then like selling that, I did a social media Facebook post I wasn't planning on either. And I was saying goodbye to that house and I ended up crying on it. And like I got like, I don't know, hundreds of
I
thousands of
saw
views.
it.
Yeah.
I saw it. It was great.
But it's like it brings you back to like how important this is for people shifting. It's their biggest financial investment. It's their shifting of their chapters significantly, and like who they trust to like guide them through. I just think our bar in real estate is too low, and people need to seek out consultation education like this so they can become better for people.
Well, Megan, what's cool about a low bar like a low bar is that it actually weeds out so many people because this is actually really
Not enough.
hard.
I
No,
know, but
this
like
is
I feel bad for the people that choose those agents that are just, oh yeah, that sounds like a good price. And like, oh, they've
I
lost
know.
7 times now.
Listen, I'm a survival of the fittest kind of guy, right? Meaning like what happens is like eventually this is why big teams or big agents just start taking all market share because they're so much better than the competition out there. And so what happens is it just weeds out people that just can't keep up,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
I understand they hired somebody that's poor or like not great. But again, this is the jungle, and this is survival of the fittest. And it's like they then learn, oh, I should have hired Megan, I should have hired Rob, I should have hired Justin, right? And this is why you're seeing like always top producers taking the majority of the market. Yeah, taking the majority of the market. It just it would be nice if it was not like that, Megan, but all of life is like that.
Oh yeah, for
Right.
sure. Right. And so like you know, hopefully getting
The
more
people,
of
the
this
people,
out.
the people on this call have just leveled themselves up one notch. And I think probably your way to be like your way of giving to the community is by doing these classes, because it does level everybody else up, right? But it also separates you from everybody else. Megan, this is awesome. Thank
Oh,
you.
thanks, Rob. I appreciate you very much.
Megan, I appreciate this. I just want to share 2 ahas that I got with you.
Oh, good.
Um,
Yay.
I think it's great that you do the video so they don't have to go back and see the property again if they love that. And 5,000 of the home inspection waived. I love that too. So thank you very much.
Yay.
I definitely took good notes. That was awesome.
Oh, good. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
Hey Megan, Dave Zimmerman here. How you doing?
Hey, Dave. Good
Hey,
to see you.
good to see you again. I'll just throw in here too. I've been on the listing side of some transactions, and I think one of them was a house in McLean, and I don't recall whether we actually did the deal. The thing that I will say is that Megan does all the things that she says she's doing, and does it in an excellent way. It's one of those things where when you're on the listing side and you have a buyer agent like Megan, you are so pleased because you've got somebody really sharp on the other side and you know it. And so thanks. Appreciate your talk today. Look
Aw,
forward to
yeah.
seeing your listing thing too.
Well, I also have to give a shout out to my team because they take a lot of the buyers now and they execute the things and they tap me like, you know, Gailey's on this call. She's really, you know, done a great job for buyers and, you know, we collaborate, right? So you can't, there's things that you cannot teach agents. And I think this is the separator is that you can't teach that hustle, right? That like the one that you got to want it, that heart and hustle, problem solving skills, common sense. You know, those are things that you can't teach people. And I think when you have someone that wants it, knows how to get it, is willing to do it and work hard for it, then, you know, they're going to seek out the education and making sure that they're taking care of their clients. But there's, unfortunately, I've met a lot of people that just don't have some of those things. And they're the ones that have a harder time in the business.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
And they don't make it. They get weeded out. Right.
Yeah.
They get weeded out.
Great.
Okay,
Any other
so-
questions? Okay.
Thank you so much, Megan.
Yep, and here's my contact. If anybody does have questions they want to ask me privately, feel free to reach out. But yeah, happy to do the listing side consultation as well next time.
Thanks,
Fantastic.
Megan. This was awesome.
Oh, good. Well, thank you.
2 weeks out. Let's get her 2 weeks out, Justin.
The count, we'll chat, Rob. The calendar is booked up, but I'll get Megan
I
back.
love it.
Got an organized team. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
I'm
like booked
booked
for the
to-
year. Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Have a great one.
Okay.